Okay, this is going to be an interesting video. The other day, I came across a tweet by Matias. I'm going to introduce him a little bit more later. Using a tool called Reweb, which is going to allow you to visually build Next.js and components and sections using Tailwind CSS. Something that I really liked and instantly sparked my curiosity to see what it is. And I started talking and sending a DM to Matias to be introduced to the application more, and then I started using it. So in this video, we're going to first of all understand what Reweb is, but we're going to take it further. We're going to build an e-commerce UI website, so the UI for an e-commerce shop using Reweb, which is a visual builder for Next.js and Tailwind CSS, but we're going to also use Vzer to generate UI, which is a tool from Vzer. We're going to then take that generative UI or the UI that was generated and then enhance it using Reweb. We're going to export the code and have a fully functional Next.js app at the end. So an end-to-end workflow from an ideation, creating things from scratch in Reweb, but also using tools, AI tools like Vzer to generate UI, and then exporting the code in Reweb. So Matias, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for inviting me. Pleasure to be here. Very excited to show how to build some cool stuff with Reweb and Vzer.
Awesome. I'm so glad, man, you were active on Twitter. Your tweet came across my feed. By chance, I don't think we were following each other before, and I saw your quick demonstration of the tool, and I was like, this is interesting, because I've worked with visual builders before, things like Framer or Webflow. They don't necessarily give you components. All Framer gives you React components, but it's not end-to-end in my workflow where I'm building Next.js apps. And most importantly, they don't work with Tailwind. So you have to just visually build or set properties that are not necessarily Tailwind. What I loved about Reweb is I could just slap in Tailwind classes while I'm designing. And then even cooler is that I can export the code to a fully functional Next.js app, which is really awesome. So tell me a little bit about yourself, your story of becoming a web developer first and then stumbling upon creating Reweb.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I got into coding when I was in high school, so quite a few years ago. And yeah, I immediately fell in love with web development, creating websites. I experimented with games, web apps, and eventually, like the front end space is what got most of my attention, because I just really like to build beautiful websites, good-looking interfaces. I'm a very visual person, and I have a passion for design as well. So yeah, I've always been focusing more on the front end space of things, and I tried like different projects in like the last few years, but eventually like this is what got me to build the Reweb, which I started a few months ago with a friend. And yeah, Reweb is a visual website builder for Next.js and Tailwind. And the idea is that I spent a lot of years building websites with Next.js and Tailwind. I think I started to use it very early, and at the same time, I'm always been attracted to these other visual builders like Framer and Webflow, and especially when they started to get very popular, I wanted to give them a try because I thought that they could speed me up, right? Like the promise is you can build very fast with these no-code tools. So I was like, sure, let's give them a try. And but suddenly I realized that actually they weren't making me faster, but the worst potential. Because the problem, I think, is that these tools are very powerful and great for designers, but for me as a developer, they're a little bit constraining because they force me to think in mental models that are not what I'm used to. So, I like Tailwind. I just want to drop in those Tailwind classes and see, and I already know what's going to happen, right? So an interface that is more designed for no coders is kind of limiting to me. And the fact that I can't access the code was also a big limitation. So yeah, I saw an opportunity to basically create a tool that kind of sits in between, that allows you to have like the flexibility of coding, but also the speed of development of a no-code tool or visual builder, right? And that's where Reweb comes in. Reweb is as an interface that is pretty similar to like what other website builders look like, but under the hood is everything is React, Tailwind, and NextJs. You can think as a developer. You can add Tailwind classes. You can mess around with the DOM, with component trees. And yeah, I think this is a better way for developers to build. And after you're done building, you can export the code and just get a standard Next.js application that you can continue building on without limitations.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the idea. And you mentioned your journey into using this no-code tools as I stumbled upon them the same way, usually through clients, because that's how they get introduced to building websites without having to hire a developer. Then they push for these no-code tools. So I was like, okay, let me look into them. I like Framer. I have used Webflow before. But similar pain points, as you mentioned, sometimes it becomes like it's good for design, it's good for simple websites, sure, but it doesn't give me the code. Or if I want to build some custom sites, instead of having to fight with those tools and injecting scripts in them, I'm better off just building an NextJS app. And your tool or Reweb really bridges the gap here to say, okay, we can still use or benefit from this visual builder tool to just for ideation, or use the Tailwind or classes or the design tools that we like and use, and then also get the code. So it's a happy marriage in between the developer and the designing tools that are there. So let's jump in. I don't want to keep the folks waiting longer. So explain to us what you're building today. I briefly mentioned in the beginning, and then let's just dive right in and show the tool and actually build the e-commerce UI.
All right, amazing. I'll start sharing my screen.
Awesome.
And yeah, so the plan for today. So we're going to build the UI of an e-commerce website. Specifically, we're going to start with a landing page. We're not going to focus too much on it. We're going to do a simple landing page and then get to the most interesting stuff, which I think is building an actual web app. So we're going to have like a catalog page where we'll see all the products of the e-commerce, a product page for a single product with all the details, and a checkout page. So for the home page, we'll just build it with Reweb. Reweb provides some pre-made sections for landing pages. And for the rest, we'll explore this workflow that I've been finding very, very powerful with Vzer. For those who don't know, Vzer is a tool by Vzer that allows you to generate code with AI. And after you generate this front-end code, you can actually import it into Reweb and customize it with the visual editor. And yeah, this is just very powerful because it gives you a faster way to customize it, to change colors, fonts, drag and drop blocks, and it's gonna be interesting. But yeah, I think we can get started with the landing page.
Okay, before you go ahead, I want to mention two things. One, the screen that you're seeing right now is Reweb. So if you go reweb.so, I believe is we're going to include links in the description. So if you go there, you can sign up for an account and you can test and try and play around with the Reweb for free. So you can just get started. That's one thing. Once you get started, once you sign up, you'll be coming to this and to your project page where you can just start building the project. The second thing I want to mention is that what I liked about the video that you had on Twitter is actually taking the result of V0 and bringing it here, which just shows that you can export code or you could copy code here and then continue. Because something that you would realize when working with AI tools that they're a good start. They just give you some stuff, but then you still need to tinker with them. And then sometimes using prompts to tinker with them, it delays you instead of just visually do the tinkering yourself. So that's an interesting part that also stood out to me.
Yeah, exactly. So Vzer, I think, is very powerful to get like 80% there, but at some point it gets really annoying to have to write a prompt for, I don't know, changing a color, making a space a little bit more wide. So that's where I think a visual interface is way faster, way more familiar, and quicker.
Beautiful.
All right, I think let's get into it.
Let's go.
Cool. So we're gonna start with the landing page. I'm gonna click here, and here's some pre-made sections that Reweb provides specifically for landing pages. For now, we'll be adding more sections for other types of web pages. But for now, we can, for example, choose this header. We're gonna need a hero. Maybe I'll do this one with the image on the right. And we have a lot more, but for now, we'll just go with these two and build it like progressively. And okay, so then the interface is pretty much similar to other visual editors. We can select blocks, we can delete blocks, we can edit text. For example, we can like come up with a nice headline for our e-commerce store. So this can be like the ultimate online store for stylish swag. Let's be a bit funny. And yeah, basically starting from these pre-made blocks, we can get into more customization. So for example, I can just select this block and go and edit its Tailwind classes. For example, this is font semi-bold. I want to make it bold. I just add this class font bold. Or I can make the text bigger just by adding the Tailwind class that achieves this result. So, it's very developer focused. On the left, instead, we have basically the DOM tree. We can see this is an H1, this is a paragraph, we have a div, and this is a button. By the way, I'm not sure if we mentioned it, but Reweb is also built on top of Shadcn UI, which is one of the most popular front-end libraries at the moment. So every component that you see here is basically taken from Shadcn.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's also a big part or a tool in my workflow as well. And I'm sure it has gained a lot of popularity in the dev community. So the fact that this is built already on top of Shadcn that we can use, it's also another great point.
Yeah, and mentioning Shadcn, actually on the right, we have literally like a Shadcn team. So we have colors in any Shadcn team. So, and we can go and play around with those. So even here is where I think a visual editor is super powerful. Like imagine doing this in code or in Vzer, having to prompt for every minimal color change. That's annoying. So having something that you can just drag and see immediately how the UI changes is very important, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
For example, we can also drag and drop blocks and reorder them. We can play around with border radius. We can change fonts. I think that I like the one we had, so I'm just gonna keep that one. Okay, so let's get into making the hero section for our e-commerce. So
before you jump
Yep.
in, I want to mention the theming, because that's also something that I really liked. Now, for folks who haven't used Shadcn, it has built-in features for theming, which is basically using CSS variables that it is then used inside of all the components. So from a single source of CSS variables in your CSS, you can just basically change your primary color, secondary, and the typical theming in your application. Now, this part of Reweb actually hooks to those CSS variables. So it just changes the same thing that if you go on Shadcn, there's this theming section that you can just play around with different colors, and it just populates different CSS variable values for you that you can copy paste into your app. You can basically do this here without having to copy anything. You can just change the colors, change the border radius or fonts, and this gets applied to all of your components that you're using. And since we're using Shadcn, even if you're using Reweb, what I think is great for maybe one part of your one section, one page, it can still tie in to the rest of your application if you're using Shadcn. So you're just using the same component UI library with the same theming, with the same variables. So that's a great part.
Yeah, and actually to show how this is basically just Shadcn code behind the scenes, we can actually click on this button, and this is gonna show me literally like the code that will be generated when I'm gonna export the app. And I can just copy paste it and put it into an NextJs application. I'll show later you can export an entire zip file with the entire Next folder.
Beautiful.
And yeah, also for every section, we can just select it on the canvas, click the code button, and we see what's the Tailwind and React output that we will get later.
Nice.
Okay, so yeah, I want to add some images on the right. Maybe I'll change these default images to some other images of products that I already collected. For example, we can add this one. And all right, I want to delete shadow and border and add actually a background. So we're gonna use the primary color with less opacity to make it lighter. We're gonna make it rounded, and I also gonna delete this gradient behind the image. And I wanna have kind of three images to show three different products here together. So I'm just gonna duplicate it, and we can actually go here and also insert like atomic components or HTML elements. In this case, I just need a div, so I can look for div. I can press enter, and now I'm able to drag and drop these two images inside the div. We're gonna make it a flex container. We're gonna put some gap, and probably these images need to be a lot smaller. So we're gonna make them small, and this can be aligned at the end, so we have this nice effect.
Beautiful.
I think also some more gap will be nice, and I'm now gonna duplicate it because I want to have another image at the bottom. In this case, it will be only one, and we can make it like a medium size. We can use flex to put it in the center, and I think this layout is already nicer. And maybe we're gonna change the images to show three different products. We can choose this hat, and for this one we can maybe try this image. I think also this can be smaller. Okay, I think this is nice. So yeah, I've been showing, basically you can, the customization is pretty flexible. Anywhere you want in the tree, you can just add like one of these Shadcn components or any HTML tag and then drag and drop around. Maybe, for example, we can add an icon to this button. We first have to these are actually good place to show this. We also can customize the props of buttons. For example, we can make it an outline button or a default button. In this case, maybe I'll first change the as child. This is one of the Shadcn props, and in this case we need it to be false because we have multiple children. And I can drop this icon here, add some more padding, and yeah, I think we're good to go. The CTA should probably be something more like shop now, and this is starting to look a lot better, I think. And yeah, finally, maybe I want to add some social proof. So we're gonna just select this block, search for it and enter, and we can say that it's loved by 1,000 customers, and we now have some nice social proof on our hero section.
Beautiful.
Okay, so next we can go ahead and actually we can even create sections from scratch. So as I showed before, we have some pre-made sections on Reweb, but maybe we need something that is not included in this list. For example, we need like a products section where we show like 3-4 products as a preview for the store. So this one we can go and actually make it from scratch. So I'm just gonna start by adding a section. We need a heading. Inside the section, we need a paragraph, and we need a div, which is going to be the container for our cards. And inside this div, we need a card for the product. And let's add some spacing. So with the container class, we adjust the width. We can use flex in a column layout with some gap to have some nice spacing. This should be bold as the main heading and maybe a bit bigger. And they should say something like our products. And I want to have like 3 cards in a row. So I think grid is makes this pretty easy. We can do grid close tree, and to customize this card, I think I want to remove the background, and shadow, no shadow and no border, and no padding to make it okay. We still have some border. I think I'm just gonna say border 0, and it should be gone. And we're gonna add an image of a product like we did before. This one is fine. And we can use probably the same, actually the same primary color with some opacity, with some rounding, and maybe some extra padding. And I think this is already looking pretty nice. This section probably also needs some space on the top and the bottom. And I think the card is looking good. This like by product, and we just Ctrl D, we can go and duplicate it. So I'm actually duplicating the card content. We need to select the card itself, duplicate it here, and we now have like our nice list of products.
Beautiful.
So yeah, this is pretty much how you can go and build from scratch with Reweb. Obviously, it's a lot faster to build with pre-made templates, but the flexibility is there if you need to build something entirely from zero that you don't have a template for or a pre-made section in Reweb's library.
Absolutely.
Cool. So maybe let's change quickly these images to showcase 3 different products, and I think we can now build the next section. I want to have some nice testimonials, which are always a good idea on our website. So I'm just going to use this testimonials pre-made section in this case and customize it a little bit. So I want to make the background of this section with our primary color that we've been using. And actually we need to wrap everything in an extra container so that this section can expand full width and don't have the white border. So this div inside is actually going to be the container, and it's going to be also a flex layout with items in the center and with some gap. I'm going to delete this. And for the heading, I basically want the same style as these other headings. So instead of like just going and adding the new Tailwind classes, I'm just gonna copy paste it and says our customers love us, and delete this part. So yeah, any normal shortcut that you can expect, like Ctrl C, Ctrl V, Ctrl D to duplicate, they work, and sometimes they make the work easier. So we should take advantage of that. Cool. So for these cards, I also want to remove the shadow. So I'm going to say shadow known, also no border. And I think I want to add like a rating. So I'm going to search through the components, and the rating is going to be inside here. And we probably want it to be at the end, so we can say justify between. And these, the avatar and the text should be together, so we're gonna wrap this in an extra div. By the way, here we can expand because sometimes it gets a little bit too small. So we can just wrap this in this div, apply flex, item center, and some gap to make it look nice. So by the way, when you make changes to a component, in this case we have like the testimonial card, it applies actually changes to all the other instances of the same component. So this is helpful, so you don't have to go and make changes to every single instance on your own. So this this is how it works.
Is this only applicable when you have used Ctrl D to copy them, or is it because if you've just created them from scratch, it won't recognize that they're the instance of the same component?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good question. So this works by default when you use a pre-made section. In this case, for example, the testimonial section is already built in a way that this all these cards are the same component. When you build from scratch, it doesn't work immediately. Uh, we're working actually on a way that will allow you to just right click anything and say turn into component like on Figma, and that will basically make it so that when you edit a single instance, it edits all the instances.
Got it. Okay.
Cool. So I think it'd be nice to have some rounded borders here. And finally, we're gonna add a FAQ section. Again, I'm gonna copy paste this heading to keep the same style. This is gonna be frequently asked questions. We don't need this. And I just wanna make this, I just wanna give a background to this, so maybe we can use secondary, the secondary class and make it rounded. Probably need some padding. That's a bit much, and some gap between this the FAQ items with Flexbox. And for example, I now don't love the color, or at least I want it to be a little bit more different than the primary color, so I can just go and on the secondary color picker, and we're just gonna make it a light gray, and I think this is nicer. I think some more padding here actually can help. And yeah, finally we can just use one of the pre-made footers. I think that's pretty good, and I think we have now a solid landing page.
Beautiful.
Cool. So yeah, this basically shows how to use Reweb, pre-made sections, or create something from scratch. But oftentimes, the most powerful thing is to actually import code into Reweb, for example, generated with Vzer, and keep customizing from that. So that's what we're gonna do right now for the next page. So we can go over to the pages section. We can add a new page. This is gonna be the catalog page. And in this case, we're gonna use Vzer to generate a skeleton. So I already collected some inspiration. With Vzer, you can either just ask with a prompt what you want, or give an image, which often helps. So I got this image from Nike's website. So I'm gonna just select it here. I have my catalog image, and I can say create a catalog page for an e-commerce website, like a product catalog page from an e-commerce website, like in the image, with some filters on the left and the product list on the right. So one extra step that we need is to actually go over to Reweb, click on import code, and copy paste this prompt. This is gonna make our life way more easier, because it tells basically Vzer a couple things on how to generate the code. First, it tells to don't use just Tailwind default colors like I don't know, background red, but instead use theme colors from Shadcn UI. So this basically, when we import it into Reweb, it already adapts to our theme. And yeah, there are a couple more rules. Reweb basically doesn't support dynamic UI at the moment. It's more for static UI and designing statically. So there are a couple rules that we need to tell Vzer to make sure that the code generated is importable in Reweb without too much trouble. So, okay, I think this looks good. Let's go ahead and let's see what Vzer gives us.
Now, for folks who haven't used Vzer before, it's a product from Vzer that is an AI-based product. They started with just generative UI, but as it is making some progress into also becoming like a web developer assistant to you. You can ask it
Yeah.
questions, it can write code, it can generate UIs, and there's more to it than just generating UI. So definitely check it out. There's a link also in the description. And we did have cover some stuff from Vzer in the past on the channel. We're going to have videos coming up with more AI tools that you can use in your workflow, from generating UI codes and even IDEs or VS Code comparable AI tools like Cursor that we would follow on that. Okay, so it seems like we have the generated UI here.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what Vzer generated, which is actually pretty nice. It's pretty similar to the image that we provided. And it's definitely like, we in most cases we're gonna need some changes. And now we could go ahead and say, okay, remove the border from the cards, remove the shadow, but this is gonna take a long time. So what I found to be faster is to just go over to the code, copy the code, and just paste it here. Click import, and boom, we now have it into Reweb's visual editor. And we can customize it in a way that is going to be more intuitive and fast than just prompting over and over. Cool. So I think I'm going to start by adding a header section again, which will make it more complete. And we can add container class to make it the same width, and remove padding on these two sections because we can instead just use flex gap to have a gap just in between. Also, I don't think we need this border on the sidebar. I think it looks nicer like this. We can have definitely some margin on top for more spacing, and it's already looking pretty good. So now I'm gonna work on the cards. And when you import code, it actually does recognize these cards as components. So if I go and do a change to this card, it actually applies it to all of them, which is pretty handy. So I'm gonna do something similar to what we did on the product section in the landing page. I want to add no padding, so I'm gonna say padding 0, to have no border, so border 0, and no shadow. Okay, and we can add our images from our products, like this t-shirt, and let's upload them all one by one. Okay. What else do we have? We got this hat.
We're running out of products here.
And some more shoes. I believe we didn't use these ones, or
Glass is
maybe
fine, yeah.
yeah. Okay, this is fine. And we're still gonna have the same style to be consistent. I've been liking this nice light background and with more padding. And this is already looking pretty nice, I think. We can actually also drag and drop components around. We need to select the card though. And okay, sometimes it gets a bit harder to do it on the canvas, but we can always do it from the layers panel, so we can move components around like this. Yeah, I think this is pretty solid. So it was actually pretty fast. Vzer gets you to 80% there, and then with Reweb you can do the last 20% very fast. And as I forgot to mention, but basically when we imported the code, it already adapted to our existing theme, like to the fonts and colors that we had, thanks to the prompt that we gave to Vzer.
Yeah, I like the points you mentioned here. First of all, we were able to get the code that was generated from Vzer, because one of the downsides of these tools is that they can't really do everything, and then the only way for you to communicate with them is really through prompts.
Yeah.
So you can get the idea there. You can just get a very good start, the foundation of what you're looking for. You can give it images for inspirations because it understands images now. So it creates something similar to the idea that you have. With the prompt that we gave it, it also tailors it so that we are using CSS variables in Shadcn, so it just reads through our own values inside Reweb. And then we can do that tinkering here inside of our code, where we can just enhance the code that was generated already to get to this product in a matter of like 5 minutes, whether
Yeah.
instead of just having to build this from scratch or primarily depend on the generated UI.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think this flow is really powerful, and like this is a demonstration of how like to build basically something like this super fast. And we're also gonna use the same flow for the next pages that we have in our plans. So I think now we can build the product page. So it's just gonna be for basically a single product to show details about a single product. And we can so go back to V0. We can start a new chat, right? Okay, I think I'm just gonna go here, and I also yeah, I got some inspiration for this page. I found this nice looking product page on Dribble, so I can just screenshot this and give it to V0. And we need to remember to use the same prompt that we used before and tell, in this case, create a product page for an e-commerce like the one in the image. And let's see what we get.
So while this is processing, a question that I had is that, we had a header and a footer, and we probably need to repeat that in all of our pages. Is there any way in Reweb that we would just, do we have to copy those two components on every page, or is it like you can select what repeats on every page?
Yeah, that's a very good question. As of now, the easiest way to do it is to copy paste the header on every page. It's obviously not the most smart way of doing it. So basically, we're going to introduce a concept of layouts, which maps exactly to what a layout is in NextJs. So there will be another way to create these skeletons, like these layouts that are shared between more pages. But as of now, we're going to have to copy paste the header.
Got it. And another thing that I noticed is, like, obviously you mentioned that you've just started this product and a lot of new features will be coming in down the line. So I noticed that you had, when you were selecting like a div or a section, you also had an option to select the motion components. Is the framework motion integrated already, or is that something also coming in the future? Because if it also allows you to bring in animations and transitions into your components, it will be fully featured.
Yeah, we do have some support for framer motion. It's not fully customizable yet, but it's something we're actually working on and gonna like release very soon. But yeah, we can like look around and insert framer motion components. But this mostly works when you import code. When you import code, the animations do work, but there's still no way to edit the animations from the UI itself.
Got it.
But yeah, again, this is gonna be released probably next week. But yeah, very soon.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so yeah, V0 generated our page. Also looks pretty good, pretty decent starting point. And again, we're gonna use the same flow to bring it into Reweb. So we can just copy paste the code, paste it here, and nice. We have our skeleton UI. So again, as I said, unfortunately now we need to copy paste this header, but this will be not a problem soon. But yeah, we already have this container section. I'm happy with that. And yeah, mainly not sure what we have to stars, but we can just duplicate to have more. We can obviously add our image, and as usual, I want to keep the same style and don't have any border on the cards. So we are gonna say border known, shadow known, and our image is gonna have this background. It's gonna be rounded and some padding. And yeah, honestly, this is already looking pretty good. So we can actually go and actually change the colors. In this case, yeah, I think it's gonna change all of them. By the way, what I need to also mention is that for the component system, there is going to be a way to basically override a component, which is something that we often want to do. So like if I have a component that needs to be different than the others, there should be like some sort of overriding mechanism that passes like extra classes to override the default behavior. So yeah, this is going to be more powerful, but for now, like if I edit this one, unfortunately, it edits all of them. There are ways around, like we can easily rebuild this from scratch, but yeah, for now, I think it's fine. And yeah, I think this price, it'd be nice to have it in the main font. And overall, I think this is pretty nice. Maybe I want to just, instead of having like this big button, I think this should be probably just like a small button on the right of the main one. So we can just wrap the two in a div, bring the buttons here, and this one is gonna be just an icon, so no text, and the size is gonna be icon, and we can put them together with flex. We don't need with full, and some of these components have some margin that is making it harder, and here probably just gap 2 is enough. And this icon is not really centered. I think if we do shrink 0, okay, there is actually some margin on the icon. So yeah, I think this is a bit more clean and looks nice. So yeah, I think this is pretty much our product page. Yeah, we're missing some images, but I think it's okay.
That's
and
okay,
yeah, it
yeah.
looks pretty nice, I think.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's recap. We used some of the pre-made sections in Reweb to get started. Headers, hero, we tinkered with the hero section to just make it the style that we like. We also showed that we can just create components and sections from scratch here using this visual builder. We didn't stop there. We used Vzer to get some code initially, like 80% of the code with some inspirations using AI tools, and then importing that code here and just making it flow with our design inside of our app. Now, here comes the interesting part. Now we want to export all of this into actual codes and components and a full-blown Next.js app where we can add logic and functionality to Next, because this is just the UI of your e-commerce. None of this stuff is actually hooked up to your own logic, to your own backend. So let's go to the next step.
Definitely. So yeah, as I showed before, something we can do is actually just select any section and get the code. And this is if we want to maybe add a single component, so we can just copy paste here and it's going to tell me all the files that I need to change. But if you're starting from 0 and we want to just generate like a brand new Next.js application, we can click this button on the right, export code, and this is going to download a zip file that is our Next.js application. So I can just unzip it, and I'm going to open it with cursor. This is uses pm, so I'm just going to do pm install and install the dependencies. And as we see, it pretty much looks like a standard Next.js application. We have our app folder, we have these two pages, we have components, UI from Shadcn, we have our hero and all the components that got generated. If you see these two headers, that's due to the fact that right now every page doesn't share a layout, so the components are kind of duplicated, but this will be fixed soon. And yeah, we can just go ahead and pm dev and see what it looks like in the browser. Okay, and yeah, we see that it's pretty much like what we did in the visual editor. I think the powerful thing, so for example, this is the landing page. We can check out the catalog page. And what's really powerful is that since the visual builder is built already on Next, Tailwind, React, the output is going to be exactly the same. There is no like translation from design to code or stuff like that that can happen with other tools. Literally, like what you build is what you get, and it looks exactly like that. Let's check out the final page, and yeah, I think it's pretty much
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love this part where you just get a full-blown Next.js app. If you are starting from zero, you can just start from your design, use that for the ideation, use the AI tools, and then bring everything to Next.js. Then you have to think around, maybe rename some of the components, maybe move them around, maybe create your own layouts until Reweb has the layout feature. But the fact that it just gives you, if you are an Next.js developer, and the fact that this tool just gives you what you are already familiar with is the greatest feature and the greatest starting point for folks getting started with Next.js apps. I've had worked with folks before where they are more design oriented than developers. The fact that this tool is just giving them what they need instead of them having to figure out how they need to bring all of this design into components and codes and Next.js format. This is just I think it bridges the gap when you're not that knowledgeable, maybe with Next.js, or you're just a beginner. This could be a tool that empowers you a lot. And I love that the fact that you're using Cursor, which is going to be useful if we want to actually add some logic to this code. Now we have the UI, we can ask Cursor, which is another, it's similar to VS Code, but it integrates AI features into it, just like the GitHub Copilot, but it is more powerful. And we can use that to add logic into our build application. And maybe we follow this up, Matias, with a second video where we would talk about this different tools that we can use as developers to really enhance our workflow using these AI tools. Now, we've already touched on Vzer here to get the UI and then use Reweb to fastly iterate over it and get to the design that we want. But we can even take it further and be more productive with Cursor and AI tools on the back end to create logics and database connections and whatnot there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big fan of, AI in general, but especially AI for enhancing productivity as a developer. And Vzer and Cursor are like probably the main two tools that I use right now, although there are more out there. And yeah, I think nowadays is like it's just inevitable that these tools can make us 10x more productive, and like we should make the most out of it, I think. So yeah, happy to share more about these flows, these techniques, these tips in another video. And yeah, mentioning like since you mentioned it, that like Reweb can be helpful for getting started with technologies like Next.js. It's actually interesting that a good part of our users are actually people who are not super familiar with frontend, for example, like backend developers, and they want to use Reweb to learn more about Tailwind or React, because it's really interesting that when you use a visual editor, you have a feedback loop that is a lot shorter. You just add this Tailwind class and you see immediately, okay, what happens, what's changing in the UI. So I think this can be pretty powerful instead of having to go back between code and the website to learn faster, basically. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, this was great. I really liked it, and I think folks are going to get great values from it. I know I will integrate this tool, specifically Reweb and Vzer I've already been using into my workflow. I've started working with designers to help me out with some of the projects that I'm working with, and it just the second that I see this tool, I was like, okay, this is going to enable me to iterate even faster if I can get my designers to design in this tool and then generate the code. So I'm just working with a full-blown Next.js app to start, or even them on their own. So this is a no-brainer for me. I'm going to definitely integrate that. I've already signed up. Now, just to clarify, you can use everything that you saw today for free. So sign up for an account. There's a link in the description to sign up. You won't be able to export the code. That's a paid plan. I'll try to get a discount code from Matias. If they agree, we will drop it in the description.
Definitely, yeah.
So definitely check it out to get started and use the tool. Anything else you want to wrap up before we wrap up?
Yeah, just one thing. So first of all, definitely, yeah, you can use you can try the visual editor entirely for free. The export of the code, it is in a paid plan. I'm more than happy to provide a discount to your subscribers. And yeah, like you were mentioning, just one final thing that I think could be helpful for mostly for designers out there. I think the real goal with Reweb, the real vision is to have a tool where both designers and developers can work together and each using their own mental model. So what we showed today is mostly for our developer or at least someone who's familiar with Tailwind, right? But we want also to think about those who don't know Tailwind. And we're gonna work towards making it more designer friendly as well, like having a different kind of interface where designers can use like a UI that is more familiar to them, like a no-code tool, but under the scenes everything is already Tailwind, and the code is like the source of truth that brings the work of developers and designers together without any translation needed. So
I think that's a great point and a great feature to add. You're right. Designers don't necessarily know Tailwind, but if you have those visual elements of allowing them to also work in the with the tool, but then under the hood everything is translated to Tailwind, which we love and use, it would be great. So I'm really hopeful for the future of Reweb. I think you've had a great product made already, and I'm sure it's going to iterate and be better as more users use it, and then as you progress into building it. I want to thank you one more time for taking this time, coming over on the channel and actually show us how to use the tool. And then for folks, if you have any other questions, like always, hit me up down in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was very fun.